Hi everybody!
I love Insomniac Games. They're actually my second favorite studio at present, making them my favorite studio under the PlayStation umbrella. Of the Sony-backed studios, Insomniac have the greatest output for the PlayStation 5, a console that a lot of people feel doesn't have enough games. In a September 2022 interview, Aaron Eberhardt, a project lead for Insomniac Games, gave an interview that has just recently been making the rounds. The as of yet unannounced game is rumored to be a multiplayer title. However, I feel like I should break down the possibilities of what this project could be, as I have a gut feeling the multiplayer is just going to be a small component of this project. Before I get into the meat of the video though, I feel like a bit of background on Aaron Eberhardt is required. They have previously worked for PlayStation with PlayStation Now, which, as most of you probably know, was rolled into the extra and premium tiers of PlayStation Plus. They have also worked for Activision Blizzard as part of their esports division, hence why there's speculation this project will be solely a multiplayer one. Bringing credence to that rumor is the fact 2 years ago, Push Square reported Insomniac Games was hiring for a multiplayer project. It wouldn't be the first time Insomniac have tackled a multiplayer title though, which is what we're delving into next. The Resistance series is probably your first thoughts when you think of multiplayer games developed by Insomniac. While it is true the Resistance trilogy is their most famous example of a multiplayer game, it wasn't their first attempt at the genre. That honor belongs to 2004's Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. God, that's fun to say. Yes, I'm juvenile. Fuck you too. The multiplayer aspect would be dropped from the mainline Ratchet games after Deadlocked. Their other titles to feature multiplayer include the Resistance trilogy, Sunset Overdrive, and of course the mostly forgotten Fuse. Going off that resume, it's clear that Insomniac at least had a grasp of what makes a good multiplayer title. Who knows how many of the veterans from the Resistance days remain though. I was able to play the multiplayer for those games, and I can say they were pretty damn fun. I never played Fuse because that game just didn't interest me, and I've only recently acquired Sunset Overdrive, a game I've still yet to play, so I can't comment on their multiplayer experiences, but I have to say I have faith in Insomniac Games, unlike Naughty Dog. Seriously, fuck that company.
Colin and his hate for Naughty Dog. It knows no bounds, ladies and gentlemen. It does not. So, if you want to have a fun drinking game, go back through the rest of Colin's backlog of videos here, okay? There's over 100 of them, and every single time that he mentions that he hates Naughty Dog, take a drink. You'll have some fun.
So, let's get into what I think this game actually is. One of my first thoughts when I read this rumor was a return to Ratchet multiplayer. It clearly worked in the past, even if I never experienced it. I actually feel like this one is actually quite likely. Ratchet is still very clearly a priority for Insomniac, despite them being a Marvel machine to a degree. To date, they've released Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, and of course, the upcoming Spider-Man 2, with Wolverine rumored to release sometime next year. If Insomniac isn't careful, they'll reach Marvel fatigue. That and so will their audience. Because of how many Marvel films have been released, I'd say it's safe to assume the public is probably getting a bit tired of Marvel properties.
Oh, fuck yeah, there's definitely some Marvel burnout, okay? I am a living example of someone that cannot stand Marvel properties because I am so burnt out on them, okay? And it seems like Marvel only just wants to keep shoving them down our throats. Stop it, Marvel. Take a break. Please. I am sick and tired of seeing superheroes all over the fucking place.
Given we last got Ratchet in 2021, I feel like a new entry in the franchise is a given at some point during the remainder of the PS5's life cycle, especially since Insomniac went to great lengths during the narrative of Rift Apart to set up future games. Also, since Ratchet's 25th birthday, or should that be Fur Day, is coming up, I could see Insomniac wanting to do something absolutely massive to celebrate that. So a game with a massive narrative and a multiplayer component they can keep going for years is definitely an appealing proposition. Also, given Ratchet as a series has always had over the top weapons, this would of course make for incredibly fun multiplayer scenarios. However, I feel like Ratchet isn't what we're going to end up with. I get the feeling we won't see this game in 2025 unless this particular project is already well into development, which I don't think is too likely given we only heard rumblings for this project 2 years ago. If the game is coming out in 2025, that means the game would have roughly 4 years of development time. This isn't the 90s or the mid noughties where you could pump out games every 12 months with relative ease. I am, of course, not including yearly titles like sports games, where the changes that do happen are so minimal it's barely worth mentioning them. If you do some research into how long game development takes these days, it's on average 3 to 5 years of work, with mobile games only taking a couple of months. Another reason I don't think it's going to be a Ratchet game is the fact the series at this point in time is known to be a narrative driven experience akin to a Pixar film, at least for the mainline games. The spin off titles did incorporate co op elements though. Since this game is being touted as a multiplayer experience, I just can't see Insomniac doing something with the Ratchet series, as that would likely mean detracting from the series' core identity at this point in time. So no, I don't think we're getting a Ratchet title, as much as I'd like to see one. So let's see what else we might get. Could a Marvel multiplayer game work? I previously alluded to potential burnout on Marvel properties earlier in this video. For that reason, I don't think we'll see a Marvel multiplayer title, though that could be potentially cool. I just don't know what ideas they could bring to the table with that. We all know what a bloody bomb Marvel's Avengers was for Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, so if it isn't a Marvel multiplayer game, what could this new project potentially be? I've covered previously that Sony should look into bringing the Resistance franchise back. To date, it and Rainbow Six Siege are the only first-person shooters I've ever been able to get into. Even though I recently got into R6, I'm even finding my interest in that title waning a little bit. For me, first-person shooters have to really stand out to catch my attention. Resistance managed to do that by incorporating a cool story with fun gameplay and fun guns. From all of the options Insomniac Games could choose from, I feel like this is the best option. I feel it's the best option because Resistance has always had multiplayer modes and co-op gameplay at its core, even though the narrative of the games have always been relatively strong, since, let's face it, first-person shooters don't typically have all that deep or gripping storylines. A good portion of them turn into go here, shoot this, shoot that, kill this thing in a specific manner, game over, with a lot of shooters primarily focusing on the multiplayer aspects. This makes Resistance a prime candidate to finally get the reboot treatment. If you want to see some of the reasons I feel like Resistance should make a return, you can check out that video in the end screen for this one. Also, it should be noted Resistance will turn 20 in 2026. So before we wrap up this video, I'll cover why I think we might get a new IP entirely. New IPs are always a risk. However, Sony has primarily let the studios under the PlayStation umbrella do what they want. This has led to amazing things like Infamous, Ghost of Tsushima, the Marvel games, and even Uncharted. Though not The Last of Us. Seriously, fuck that franchise. A lot of people, however, do consider Naughty Dog and Insomniac Games the crown jewels of the PlayStation crown. This gives both studios carte blanche to do whatever they please. So, if Insomniac Games wanted to, they very easily could make a brand new IP that is entirely multiplayer focused, and they very well might do so. With a new IP, they could spread their creative wings more easily as they wouldn't be beholden to any expectations beyond make the game great. If it is a new IP, they could do a ton of things. However, I think it'd likely be a sci-fi focused game given their love for the genre. Of their back catalog, their sci-fi titles include 1996 Disruptor, the entirety of the Ratchet and Clank series, Fuse, and of course the Resistance franchise. Each one has been a vastly different take on the sci-fi aesthetic. Disruptor was a Doom clone, Resistance, an alternate history with alien invasion-like elements. Ratchet and Clank, of course, is the cartoony space exploration focused sci fi franchise of the bunch. If Insomniac continues the sci fi convention, they could take that in a number of directions. So I've covered what this game might be. Before wrapping up, I want to briefly cover why I think it's not going to be just a multiplayer title. While just multiplayer games and live service models do work and are very lucrative for the successful ones, I don't think Insomniac is going to pivot in that direction. The company, even as far back as the Spyro games, have had a focus on narrative experiences, even if those experiences are simplistic in nature a lot of the time. If they hard pivot into just multiplayer experiences, they risk alienating a lot of their core fanbase. For that reason alone, I feel like it's probable Insomniac is going to include a narrative to some degree, even if the campaign is short. By including a narrative in the package, they increase the value proposition for the customer, and it'll be there for those who want to interact with it or not. By doing so, Insomniac potentially makes this project more lucrative for themselves and their parent company. They can sell the base game at the standard fare of $89.99 Canadian and have a live service model for the multiplayer aspect and make a ton of money from the plebs who buy every piece of DLC. So those are just some of my thoughts on this project. I feel like we'll see it in late 2025 or sometime in 2026. Hence why I think it'll be Resistance. Celebrating that franchise turning 20 is just too good of an opportunity to pass up. Plus, it was reported by Push Square and other outlets that Sony were looking to bring back some legacy franchises during the PS5 era as a celebration of PlayStation. I can't think of a better option than Resistance. But what do you think? Do you think this game is going to be a Ratchet and Clank title, a Resistance game, or something Marvel related, or potentially a brand new IP? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. 2 of my previous videos will be popping up now. One is covering what I'd like in a Resistance reboot, the other is a list of 10 studios I'd like to see Sony acquire. Check them out, and until next time, keep blazing that trail.